Hello and welcome back to another edition of Penn State Sports Night. I'm Jack Hirsch alongside Mike Marcantonidi, and it is March, basketball fans, and that means March Madness. NCAA Selection Sunday was just yesterday, and the brackets are out. Villanova is the #1 overall seed. Kansas, Gonzaga, and UNC are the other #1 seeds. Mike, why don't you talk about some of the seeds you don't agree with, and maybe some of those #1 seeds or some other teams that maybe we're not thinking about?
Yeah, see, it's hard to disagree too much with the #1 seeds. I thought Nova was an easy pick. Gonzaga was an easy pick to be a 1, only 1 loss all year. Thought Kansas has been one of the most dominant teams all year, so I thought they deserved a 1. Didn't think UNC deserved a 1. I thought UNC was more. It was a better fit on the two line, maybe the best overall #2 seed in the tournament. And I thought Arizona, who is ranked as the best 2 in the tournament, should have been a #1. They won the Pac-12 tournament, which was pretty impressive considering the conference with Oregon was a top 10 team. UCLA has been good all year. So they went through that field. They won their conference tournament. UNC did not. I thought they could have flip-flopped. How about you?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that UNC should not have been a #1 seed. I mean, they didn't win their own conference tournament, and they really haven't played the most sound and clean basketball all year. But the seed I really don't agree with is the actual champion of the ACC, Duke. They have had some really ugly losses and some really ugly wins, if there is such a thing. They lost to Syracuse not too long ago. And they, you know what, a team we'll talk about later, Penn State, they did not handle very well. I think ended up being a 10-point game. And that should have been a game that they could have dominated, even though Penn State obviously is an emerging program, and we'll talk about that more later. That should have been a game early in the season, non-conf, that they should have dominated, and they didn't really do that. Obviously, there's a lot of talent on this team. I think a lot of people are saying that Duke is maybe the most talented team in the field, but they just haven't had that strong of a performance, and especially they were not very good when Coach K missed all that time due to his back surgery. Among other seeds, I thought Arizona should have been USC. I thought Purdue should have been a little lower. I think they had a really bad performance at the end of the season. They had some wins, and again, they could have beaten Penn State a little more handily. It seems like Penn State's kind of ruining a lot of people's dreams.
Seems that way.
But they got knocked out early by Michigan, and Michigan ended up winning. And I thought Michigan should have been higher than a 7 seed.
Okay. Another team that I thought that should have been higher than they were, Wichita State on the 10 line, only 4 losses all year. And then Louisville on the 2 slot. I thought that they more maybe a 3 or 4 for them. Yeah, that's a team that, look, they've played well all year, but it's a team that really doesn't impress me. I don't think they have a lot of firepower. They just they went under the radar all year, so I thought maybe they should have been a little lower.
Yeah, and I think this Kentucky team this year, for Kentucky, was a little under the radar. They were #5 in the last AP poll, so I thought they could have maybe flirted with a #1 seed that UNC eventually got. And obviously, Wichita State is always a team to look out for in the tournament. I know a couple seasons ago they flirted with that perfect season.
Yep.
And now they're looking to make another run possibly and make it to the Final Four like they did a couple of seasons ago.
For sure. How about a couple sleepers or Cinderella teams this year? Even teams that aren't rated too high seed-wise that could make a run.
Well, I really, really like this Michigan team, and I think they've got a really, really good story after, if you don't know already, about the plane crash they had leaving Michigan on their way to the Big Ten tournament last week. They were able to win their first game having to wear their practice jerseys, their reversible practice jerseys, because the game jerseys were still on the plane. Now, Coach John Beilein said his team was really scared after that. And it kind of has inspired them, even though they weren't even thinking about basketball at the time. Derek Walton is playing out of the best basketball of his career right now. And I think they're a team that can make a serious run. They made the run in the Big Ten tournament. They beat Purdue. They beat a lot of good teams and ended up with the Big Ten championship in a very competitive conference.
Playing well at the right time. Yeah, a couple of teams I'm looking at, not necessarily not a Cinderella at all because they're a #5 seed, not really a sleeper either, but I'm looking at Notre Dame in the West region. This is a team that's coming on strong at the right time, made it to deep in the ACC tournament after struggling in the midway through the season, but they're coming on at the right time. Mike Bray is one of those coaches that you put him up there with guys like Wisconsin, Bo Ryan, or even after him, what they have going on there, Jay Wright, Roy Williams. You put them up there with coaches that just seem to do well in the tournament. So I think Notre Dame has a run in them. A couple double-digit seeds. Number 14, New Mexico State out of the East region. I like the matchup against Baylor. I'm not high on Baylor. I think there could be an upset there. Maybe they're a double-digit seed that gets to the Sweet 16. And then number 12, Nevada out of the Midwest. I like their matchup as well in that region. And I think they can make a run. They're playing Iowa State in the first round. That's another 12-5. It could be an upset. So I'm looking at a couple of those teams.
Yeah, I also like Xavier, number 11 Xavier playing number 6 Maryland. Again, a lot of people have not viewed the Big Ten as such a strong conference this year. I disagree with that, but I think Maryland is still a little overrated. Again, this is a team that lost to Penn State. We keep bringing up teams that Penn State has played and not performed well against. Or their opponents have not performed well against them. They should have been able to win a game against Penn State that didn't even make the NIT tournament. So Xavier has a good chance of pulling off that upset for those making their brackets at home. And another team out of the Big Ten, because why not talk about the Big Ten more? They're not a double-digit seed, but Northwestern, this is the first time they've ever made the NCAA tournament, so I think they have a good chance of going a little far. I have them in my Elite Eight, so we'll be interested to watch that one.
Yeah. Yeah, Final Four. You can't do a March Madness segment without talking about the Final Four. Who you got?
I have Villanova, FSU, Florida State University, Kentucky, and Michigan. Okay. I think Michigan is going to parlay some of that inspiration they had from their predicament last week getting to Washington, and they're going to make a big run here. I don't see them winning at all. I see... well, we'll get into that. Yeah. How about your Final Four?
Yeah, so Final Four, I'm going with the defending champs making it back to the Final Four out of the East, the 1 seed. My only 1 seed in the Final Four, have them meeting Arizona out of the West, the 2 seed there. And then on the other side of the bracket, the 3 Oregon, and I have them meeting number 4 seed Butler. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 in Final Four. All right, so you're champ now.
My champ.
Finals matchup and your champ.
I see Villanova taking their 3rd overall NCAA tournament championship and 2nd in the last 2 years.
All right, over who?
I have them over Kentucky right now.
Okay.
I think this Kentucky team's pretty good, and I think they could make a run.
Yes, yeah, it was on this show last year that I predicted that Villanova would win the NCAA tournament when all the doubters were saying, the year before lost in the round of 32. But hey, every year is a different year. But this year, I think Nova repeats, becomes the first team in a while to go back-to-back, first since Florida in the mid-2000s. So I say they take it over Oregon in the finals.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be it'll certainly be tough for the Wildcats to repeat. I mean, they've always, even when they won their first championship back in the 80s with Raleigh Massimino, they were the underdogs, and right now they're not the underdogs. So I think that could be tough for them, but I think this is a good team with Josh Hart. Chris Jenkins could make another key shot just like he did last year. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens. Definitely an exciting time of the year, March Madness. That's going to do it right now on Penn State Sports Site. Mike Marcantonini, Jack Hirsch. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Christian Kirkpatrick alongside Tommy Butler talking about the World Baseball Classic, which has been a pretty exciting tournament, well underway into the 2nd round of it. What team are you most impressed with, Tommy?
Well, as everybody would have guessed, the Dominican Republic are playing incredibly well. They still haven't lost since 2009. 2 entire World Baseball Classics ago. They won the one in 2013. And they look to be on their way to win the one this year as well, with players like Jose Bautista, Adrian Beltre, Starling Marte, Robinson Cano. Their bats are just, unless you are having an impeccable game as a pitcher, your team's not going to win against that. They've shown against Colombia just the other day, they went to extra innings, tied at 3, and then in the 11th inning, they scored 7 runs to win 10-3. What are you supposed to do about that?
They're a little explosive, I would say. That team is stacked from top to bottom. But my team I'm most impressed with, a team that kind of shocked me. I mean, we expected the DR to be a juggernaut, but the team that most impressed me has been the Netherlands. They fell to Israel in round 1, but then looked like a completely different team. In this round, I think it was last night, they just completely mopped the floor with them. Won by a score of 12-2 earlier this morning. And they got a lot of weapons that you should really be keeping your eye on. They got Vladimir Valentin. He's hitting .556 through his first 5 games played. Didi Gregorius, who we'll talk about down the road, he's drove in 5 runs against Team Israel last night, including a 3-run jack. Jerickson Profar has an OPS of 1.388. That's incredible. And on the pitching side, Jair Jurgens has been completely dominant. He has the 2nd most innings pitched. He's struck out the most batters. Has only let up 3 runs. And of course, he's not the only pitcher. 13 Netherlands pitchers out of, 7 of the 13 Netherlands pitchers have an ERA of 0. They are shutting things down, and it really impressed me. So we talked about the teams we're most impressed with. What about the players, individual players on each team? Which one are you most impressed with?
Well, you mentioned Didi Gregorius for that Netherlands team. In just 19 at-bats so far, he has 8 hits, 8 RBIs. He's averaging an RBI per hit. He has 4 doubles and a home run, which means more than half the time he does get a hit, it's for extra bases. That's incredible for a Yankees team that he's going to head back to after this World Baseball Classic. He had an incredible season last year. He's just the 3rd Yankee shortstop to hit 20-plus home runs and have a batting average over 275. And they were a little nervous about him going on this World Baseball Classic because of possible injuries. There's always that chance. And if he continues playing this way, there's nothing that the Yankees can't expect from him. He'll already be in midseason form at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, you talked about the Yankees being scared of injuries. Remember the last World Baseball Classic, Mark Teixeira broke his wrist hitting off a tee and was out for the whole year. Wasn't the same ever since. So injuries were certainly a concern for the Yankees going in, but Didi Gregorius completely shooed that away. My player is Jason Marquis, who's been just dominant for Team Israel and the Cinderella team. In 3 starts, he owns a 0.93 ERA over 9 2/3 innings. That's the most ahead of Jair Jurgens. Only allowed 1 run during Saturday's 4-1 win over Team Cuba. He allowed his first run on a home run, 4 hits and a walk over 5 2/3 innings of work, and induced 7 ground ball outs in those 5 innings. Incredible. And it should come to no one's surprise that Marquis, who hasn't played in the majors since 2015, should accumulate some interest from major league teams. Talking about teams that are going into the season with young talent that hasn't really panned out, like the Yankees. Their last 3 competitors for that last 2 rotation spots haven't really panned out. Talking about the Atlanta Braves, who's already added players, veteran players like Bartolo Colon, R.A. Dickey onto the staff moving into the new ballpark. Turn to no one except the guy who's shutting down the best in the world to move into your new ballpark. So he's my player who I'm really impressed with. Kind of shocked me. Didn't expect this from Marquis at all. And we talked about guys and teams that have impressed us. What about teams that have disappointed us? Who's the team for you that really disappointed you?
For me, it's Cuba, and it's not necessarily because of how poor they're playing with the players they have. They're 2-2. They've made it to the 2nd round. They're currently 0-1. The biggest problem is their pitching isn't very impressive. They haven't done very well. They've given up a lot of runs, and with that, there's not much of a chance for going very far, especially when 9 of their 9 players that have 10 or more at-bats so far in the World Baseball Classic, 4 of them, only 4 have averages above 300. Usually that would sound pretty impressive, but 2 of them in that same 9 have averages less than 100. And then it just continues to go down from there, and those are the only players getting any actual at-bats. It will be surprising if they can make it any farther, or if they can continue to win. Make it to the semifinals would be a surprise for me.
And you want to talk about a team that has people skipping out. I'm really disappointed in the United States of America. First, for 2 reasons. The first one has been the pride. I mean, you look at the teams like the Dominican Republic. I think they're the only team that can not only fill up Marlins Park, but can make it feel like it's about to collapse on itself. You just look at the joy and pride from teams like the Dominican Republic, even Cuba, and literally every other team in the tournament. And the United States couldn't sell out Marlins Park at all. The upper deck was completely empty. No one has bought in to the World Baseball Classic in America, and it's kind of disappointing. Talk about the best in the world, like Mike Trout, Clayton Kershaw. The best baseball players in the world aren't in it, just from skipping out. And beyond that, you can't blow a 5-0 lead to the Dominican Republic. And Andrew Miller, out of all people, does so much for confidence in the next round, because these two teams might face each other in the finals, or so it doesn't really do well for confidence. And quickly, who's your team to win? Who do you think is going to go all the way?
Well, I said earlier, the Dominican Republic. I think it's going to be, I don't think they have much that they need to improve on, and I think that's just a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, same thing. Dominican Republic, you know good things are happening when Manny Machado's your 2-hitter and Adrian Beltre's your 7th hitter. Talk about protection. So that's going to wrap up this World Baseball Classic talk. Once again, I'm Christian Kirkpatrick with Tommy Butler. We'll be right back here on Penn State Sports Night.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Alyssa Devine alongside Jack Hirsch. And for this segment, we're going to be talking about the new renovation plan, the long-awaited athletics renovation plan. That's a 20-year plan, and it's been long anticipated. So, Jack, you want to go over just a few key points of this plan? I know there's a Center of Excellence part of the plan, which is 5 key points of this plan that are going to be renovated 5 years rather than 20, so that their priority. Do you want to go over those 5?
Yeah, so first of all, Beaver Stadium is included in this plan, but the first 5 items of the plan are prioritized, and they're going to be taken care of in the first 5 years of this plan, which is going to start in the 2018-2019 school year. What that means is they're going to build these 5, they're going to fund these 5 projects first before anything else. They might start some of these projects before, and that's including renovations to Beaver Stadium, renovations to the Jordan Center, renovations to Rec Hall, golf courses. Jeffrey Field is actually part of these 5 priority.
Okay. The other ones are more of a long term, and if they have the money, they're going to put in.
Yeah, and these renovations could cost a lot of money. So these 5 things that we're going to see in the next, I guess, 7 years now, the first 5 years of this plan, are what they're calling their Center of Excellence. And what that is going to be basically the hub for student athletes. It's going to be right across from the Morgan Academic Center, which is basically a study building for the athletes. And it's going to consist of offices. Penn State Athletic Administration offices are going to move there from the Bryce Jordan Center. There's also going to be team offices, team meeting areas, locker rooms. And there's also going to be some facilities for sports science, nutrition, and other things like that. And now attached to that is going to be a new indoor practice facility with
for tennis, right?
No, that's a different facility. Okay. But the indoor practice facility is going to supplement Haluba Hall. It's going to be similar to that. There'll be a large field, and that's going to be used by the baseball teams, softball teams, lacrosse teams, and the men's and women's golf teams for indoor practices. And I believe they are going to move the indoor lacrosse games to there because it will have video capability to broadcast those games. The next part of the plan is that indoor tennis facility you mentioned, which will triple the size of the current indoor tennis facility located right near the Pagula Ice Arena. That will provide locker rooms for the teams, which they don't have their own locker room currently. They have to share a locker room with the visitors as well as public use of that tennis facility. There's also going to be a pro shop there, and it will have the required amount of courts
for NCAA tournaments.
For NCAA tournaments, that's right. And the fourth part of this plan is a new natatorium replacing the 50-year-old McCoy natatorium.
It doubles in size, does it not?
It is doubled in size, yes. There's a diving pool, and there
all the necessities.
All the necessities, locker rooms, the whole works. It's going to have an open end that looks out to Mount Nittany, so when you're going in there for a swim.
A nice view.
Yeah,
also.
Exactly.
You need that when you go swimming.
And now the fifth part of the fifth project that's going to be prioritized are renovations to Jeffrey Field, which will include more than just the bleachers that are currently there, as well as concession stands, restrooms, which are not currently there, and locker rooms for the visiting teams. Again, Jeffrey Field is now currently just bleachers. So they're really going to add on to that.
All right. So before we wrap it up, Jack, we talked about the Center of Excellence, but I mean the main, I would say the main concern here for most fans and students and faculty is Beaver Stadium. That's going to be more long-term, 20 years. What's your favorite part about that plan? I know they're adding new escalators, elevators, a brick encasing structure, but I also know it's moving from 107,000 to 103,000.
Yeah, Penn State Athletics is going to have to figure out a new hashtag for filling Beaver Stadium once this plan is complete. The new capacity will be around 103,000,
Yeah.
but fans are going to be much more comfortable. They're going to put chair backs on the seats. We're not sure if the student section will have chair backs on the seats yet, but we'll hopefully learn that in the coming days. But my favorite part of this plan is some of these new skyboxes that will be, I mean, it'll almost look like an NFL stadium now.
Right.
I mean, Beaver Stadium right now just looks like a gigantic set of bleachers.
Right.
But they're going to widen the concourses, widen the gaps between seats to more of an industry standard of 33 inches as opposed to 24 inches. And it's going to look a lot different, and it's going to look a lot more like all these buildings in the plans will be built to look like each other, much more
Right,
modern.
I mean, Beaver Stadium's old. I mean,
Yeah,
we had
Beaver
to-
Stadium is 57 years old, so it's going to take that next step into the future, and we won't have to rebuild it. We don't know the final price for it, but it'll probably be pretty significant. These changes were compared to the Texas A&M renovation of their Kyle Field, which cost $485 million. So this renovation could cost some significant money to Penn State donors.
All right, well, that's the new plan here for Penn State athletics. I mean, very, very exciting news for all of us, and especially for incoming students and all that. So that's going to do it for this show on Penn State Sports Night. Thank you all for tuning in. Alyssa Devine alongside Jack Hirsch.